The weather is really playing tricks on us today. I mean, it looks sunny outside, but it is freezing, and I have to wear a jumper inside today because I'm so cold. Today, as promised, I will be talking about my favourite prog epics. Now, I was trying to narrow it down to 10, but I had to put in some more. So there's 12 carefully written about prog epics that I have sat down, re-listened to, and written about. So this video could be quite long, and I'm hoping for it to be around the 20-minute mark, because considering this video will be about prog epics, a lot of them being around the 20-minute mark, it's almost like a irony thing, a coincidental occurrence, I guess. But enough of me talking, let's get on with my favourites. So we're going to start with number 1, and these are in no particular order, they're just 12 of my favourites. And if I've missed out any that you maybe thought would be on this list or want to be on this list, I have so many favourites, but these are my current favourites and the ones that I can write the most about and the ones that kind of have a meaning to me personally. So the first one is Tarkus by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, we're all aware that that is an incredible album, and the title track being a very brilliant prog epic is in that. It's obviously going to be in my favourites, alongside Karn Evil 9, which I'm going to talk about later. So, three people in this group, and it's such a big sound. You know, I talk about that with Rush a lot, but they have such a big sound for only 3 people, and I think that's an incredible part of it. The lyrics fit the music very well, and I like the way that the piece bounces back and forwards between, like, chaos and peaceful music, if that makes any sense. And I particularly love Keith Emerson's organ work on this piece. It's very much a notable feature for me personally, as someone who used to play piano, and, you know, hearing that, it's very, very good. Second one is one that's very well loved in the prog rock community, Supper's Ready by Genesis. And the first time I actually heard this, I was just sitting there like, what did I just listen to? Like, it was just so crazy to me, because I'd never heard anything like it. And from the, you know, watching the live performances on YouTube of the piece being played, of all of Peter Gabriel's different costumes, and all the lyrics, and just the whole stage atmosphere makes for a very great piece. I like the use of time signature changes as well as key changes, and the way that they were able to conclude this 23-minute long epic is something that I notice in a lot of classical music, so that's a very, very big compliment there. It's so perfect, the ending, the finale, it's so perfect, and I had to listen to it again, I think. I re-listened to it after the first time I heard it, because I was like, right, let me just listen to that again. And I like the use of instruments as well, you know. Always a good thing in prog, use of instruments. Number 3, Close to the Edge by Yes, off the album Close to the Edge. One of my all-time favourite pieces of music, this. I think I mention a lot that Close to the Edge is probably my favourite Yes record, and up there with my favourite prog rock records. The bass lines, especially, obviously notably Chris Squire's bass lines very stand out a lot to me, because they're very much, it's a very iconic sound. And going back to keyboard solos, I think this is some of Rick Wakeman's finest work and finest moments in Yes. The harmonies in the I Get Up, I Get Down section, absolutely beautiful, beautifully put together with John Anderson's vocal range, and just showing off his talent as a very great singer and a very great prog frontman. I do love Gates of Delirium from Relaya, but I think Close to the Edge takes it for me. You know, that one is my favourite, as much as I do love Relaya. So number 4 is Octavarium by Dream Theater. Now, this is the first kind of more modern prog epic that I'm going to be speaking about today. It's an incredible piece of music. Say what you want about Dream Theater. I know a lot of people don't really like Dream Theater all that much. I know it's insane to me, but this piece is probably off their best album, Octavarium, and probably their finest work, in my opinion. One of the first longer tracks of music that I truly fell in love with, and it captured so much inspiration from older prog bands and newer groups that they were listening. There's some parts that sound like Muse to me. There's parts that sound like Iron Maiden, and the intro is obviously very heavily influenced by Pink Floyd. The way that it flows through into the different sections of the song is great, and it definitely keeps you satisfied. Your ear's satisfied with all the tempo changes, time signature changes, just changes in atmosphere altogether, because you have your kind of classic prog sound as well as the modern metal sound, and I think that very, very well done, and one of my favourite Dream Theater albums, probably my favourite Dream Theater album. Number 5, Echoes by Pink Floyd, one of my favourite albums of all time, metal, and it was the first Pink Floyd song I was ever introduced to. Funnily enough, I wasn't introduced to Dark Side of the Moon first, or The Wall. I was introduced to metal. That was my first Pink Floyd experience. And I think that being introduced to that album above Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall actually made me love them more, because I was able to discover their kind of more progressive sound first, before their more mainstream sound. And I think that this piece is probably their finest work, in my opinion. I mean, Animals is probably my favourite album of Pink Floyd, but I think this album, Metal, and this piece, Echoes in particular, is a very, very close second. During the kind of middle section of the song, where it's kind of silence, well, not silence, but ambient, I love the way that Gilmour uses his guitar at this point, because it just sounds a bit like a bird to me, but I love that so much. I always kind of think, well, that sounds a little bit like a seagull, but I love that. It makes me feel like I'm by the sea. And obviously, Rick Wright's keyboard playing in this track is obviously very much stuff of legend, and the way that the piece concludes itself is 4 guys at their musical prime. Very good piece. If you are not into that, introduced to that side of Pink Floyd, I think you should check it out. A lot of people seem to consider Pink Floyd less prog. I'm sort of on that side, because I think that they're not classic prog, you know, they're not like Yes or Genesis and stuff like that, but I think that they kind of do fall under progressive music, maybe not necessarily progressive rock, but it's like, you know, Sgt. Pepper's and stuff like that. It's technically considered progressive, but not strictly progressive rock, because progressive rock is more of the Yes, the ELP, the Genesis, is the Rushes of this world. I don't know, leave your opinions on that, because I think that they could be considered a prog band, but not enough to be considered a prog band, if that makes any sense. They have prog aspects to their music, definitely, you know, with things like Echoes and Atom Heart Mother, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's definitely prog, but they haven't released enough material to be a prog band, like enough progressive rock material to be a prog band. Alright, I'll talk about that at another time. Number 6, as I mentioned with my first point, I was going to be talking about Karn Evil 9 by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I bet you weren't expecting me to talk about them again. But this is another favourite of mine. I love Brain Salad Surgery. I love this piece of music in particular. Half an hour long, but it definitely keeps you very much entertained with the, again, very, very skilled musicianship, talented people who I did some further research they were young when they made this. They were in their 20s or so, and that messes with me quite a lot. It's like, how could something so brilliant come out of the minds of 20-year-olds? Like, it's incredible to me. I guess because I see the standard of music now of what 20-year-olds are coming out with now, so. But that's irrelevant. I love every part of this piece in particular. I don't have a favourite part, because it's one of those pieces where you don't listen, I can't listen to it, like, I can't just listen to, like, one section of it, like the middle sections or the end, or I have to listen to the whole thing. I can't just skip the sections. I have to sit and listen to the whole thing. If I'm going to be listening to Karn Evil 9, I'm not going to be listening to the second impression. I'm going to be listening to first, second, and third, you know, all of it in one. That's how I think it was meant to be listened, personally. And the live version on the Welcome Back My Friends to Show That Never Ends live album is very much brilliant as well, and shows off how they were able to conduct that into a live version. It makes for very much an enjoyable listening experience, as you can probably guess. I really do love Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Number 7, 2112 by Rush, off the album 2112. This was my first introduction to Rush. That was the first piece of music I'd ever listened to by Rush. Funnily enough, it wasn't Tom Sawyer or anything, it was 2112. And it's not a bad way to start, is it? It's not a bad way to be introduced to a group. And this piece of music gives me chills even to this day. Like, even after listening to it for about 2 years, I've listened to Rush for quite a long time, it still gives me chills as much as the first time I ever heard it. And another epic from 3 very talented people, a 3-piece group, and it's hard to come by such skill and complexity in today's musical climate. Again, this album was made, I think, in like the mid-70s, and I wish that I could see more of that nowadays in, well, I do, because I listen to a lot of modern prog as well, but I'm just talking about people's general taste, just the general public, not just progressive music fans. A lot of you have actually been commenting in my videos, well, not a lot, but certain people have been talking about how I'm wrong in assuming that Rush is a prog rock band. I think that they are a prog rock band, because if you look at the structure of 2112 and other pieces that they have done in the past, it's very much a prog rock structure of music. You know, you've got parts that have got lyrics, and you've got big sections of instrumentals, and then you've got instrumental and improvisation and all that kind of stuff, and then you've also got the kind of conclusions which could feature lyrics, could not, and just all the different sounds that are being used in this piece. You know, there's a part where there's just, you know, water running for ages. That's not really something that you see in classic rock. There's, I think, during that bit with all the water, I think Lifeson's tuning his guitar. You wouldn't find Led Zeppelin doing a song like that. No disrespect to Led Zeppelin, I love them, but you wouldn't see them doing something like that. But it's, again, a great album and a great piece. Highly recommend. And if you're gonna say it's not prog, then I don't know what is. Then if 2112 isn't prog, then I don't know what to tell you. Number 8, A Plague of Lighthouse Keepers by Graaf Generator, a very new discovery for me. I actually did a review of this album, the album that it's on, Porn Heart. If you want to check out my review, I will link it up here or in the description somewhere. It really did affect me, that piece. That's why I had to put it in today. I wouldn't have put it in if it didn't mean something to me, because all these pieces mean something to me. They all have history with me. They affect me personally, so that's why I put them in. And the lyrics are just very insightful, very emotional at times, and I like the kind of the music that accompanies all these lyrics, and I think that it's ahead of its time, this record. I very much love the sound. It's very, I don't know how to explain it, it's very odd, but in the best possible way. It's chaotic as hell, it's chaotic, it's crazy, but it's also beautiful, and I think that's a good way to sum up what prog is, really. And I think that it's quite an underrated piece. I mean, I don't see many people talking about this piece a lot in kind of top 10 prog lists. I think it definitely needs to have its own place in there. The musicianship is absolutely fantastic, and each section is different, so that's what I love about epics, is that if each section of the piece is different, it makes it more interesting to listen to. Because if you have something that's the same for about 20 minutes, it can start to get a little bit samey and a bit boring at times, but all these pieces that I'm talking about are not boring, obviously, but this is definitely an interesting piece of music, and I think that the style of vocals also helps as well. The wide vocal range of Peter Hamel is very, very inspirational to me in a way, and very unique to Graaf Generator. And this is definitely a must listen for all prog fans who may have just scratched the surface of the big prog bands like your Emerson, Lake and Palmer and your Yes and your Genesis, but delve deeper into the kind of Gentle Giants, Graaf Generators and stuff like that. Definitely listen to this record. At number 9, we've got some more modern prog here. So this is Anesthesize? I think that's how it's pronounced, by Porcupine Tree, off Fear of a Blank Planet. More modern prog. Brilliant piece of music. It combines 2 of my favourite things in this world, metal and prog. Put them together and you have this piece of music, which is absolutely phenomenal, and I am a big Dream Theater fan, so I do love my prog metal as well, and Opeth, so checking out Porcupine Tree and hearing that record for the first time, and hearing that piece really kind of made me think. It makes me think, as prog is meant to. It's meant to make you think, and I was blown away by just the combination of prog and metal and the composition of the piece altogether. The production is fantastic. Obviously it's Steven Wilson, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that the production was bad from a great producer. And it's almost like a throwback for me, because I used to listen to a lot of metal a few years ago, and combining those two made me it made me feel nostalgic at times. You might hear a little ding every so often from my computer. That's just my emails. I've got all my stuff written out on here so that I have something to refer back to. Number 10. I'm not sure if this is considered an epic because it's not 20 minutes plus, but I'm going to throw it in there because I consider it an epic. In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. The last track on the album and the title track of the album. It's an absolute prog classic, as we all know. It's literally, that album cover is probably one of the faces of progressive rock music. Released at the end of the 60s, it stunned people completely with the complexity of the music, something that people had never heard before, and they'd taken, you know, the earlier prog influences and jazzed them up completely and made In the Court of the Crimson King. And the freaky cover as well also probably drew people in a bit more, and it's regarded as not only a great prog album, one of the greatest prog albums of all time, but probably one of the greatest albums of all time, period. So, as we know, Greg Lake is the singer on this album, and I think that the vocals on this particular track are so haunting to me, especially the reverb that's used on it. It's great articulation on vocals as well, and bass lines are fantastic. The geniusness that is Robert Fripp on guitar, incredible as well. All the different parts of this track are different, and I love that they were able to squash that into a 10-minute song, but not squash it so much that it feels crammed, but just enough for it to keep you entertained. And I mean, I've re-listened to that album so many times, it's unbelievable. Every time I hear that last track, it's blows me away every single time. I mean, I think the first time I heard it, I didn't quite get it at first, because this was my pre-prog days. This was more when I was into classic rock, so it didn't really click with me initially. But when I re-listened to it while I was solidified in my prog mentality, which is where I am at the moment, I thought, well, this is definitely a great album. And again, time signature changes, use of instruments, incredible. Fantastic album, and you've all probably heard it, so I can stop talking about it now. Number 11, Thick as a Brick, Part 1. For me, I mean, I think the whole thing is one big epic, but I'm just going to talk about Part 1 today. It's probably my favourite Jethro Tull record, Thick as a Brick. I love how it's just two sides of music, and both very much interesting sides of music. What I noticed on Spotify is that they kind of broke down all the individual tracks in the piece, rather than keeping it in part 1 and 2. That's irrelevant. Lyrics are well written, of course, and obviously the musicianship is amazing. I love bands that use flutes. Like, obviously that's why I'm such a big Genesis fan myself. I mean, I love Jethro Tull as well. I love Ian Anderson's stage presence as well. He's a very great frontman and a great flutist? Is that a term? Okay, flutist is a real word, okay, just making sure. Great theatrics, and very much the perfect frontman for this group. I love the guitar and bass lines on the first part of the piece in particular, and overall just a brilliant record. If you've listened to Act Along, then I think you should listen to Thick as a Brick as well if you haven't yet. It's a great album. And finally, number 12, Atom Heart Mother by Pink Floyd. As I mentioned, I was going to mention this track. Another favourite of mine, early Pink Floyd again, and I've written down here that I love how strange yet beautiful the piece is. I think that's a great way to sum up Atom Heart Mother as a whole, strange but beautiful. I love the section of the choir singing, and in particular, Rick Wright's organ playing alongside that is absolutely incredible. Every time I hear that section, it's just chills. Oh, this is just so good. And it's so grand at times and obscure, and I think it's quite an underrated Pink Floyd record, because I think, you know, everyone knows The Wall, everyone knows Dark Side of the Moon. Nowadays, everyone knows Animals, but Atom Heart Mother is definitely one of my favourite Pink Floyd records of all time. I love the change in atmospheres, and it really does show the true genius of 4 band members. There is not a dull moment whatsoever in this piece of music and no weak points whatsoever. It's just 20 minutes of pure gold. And that concludes today's video. I spent a very long time trying to figure out what pieces of music I was going to put in today because I had so many. I had a whole list and I just had to cut it down to 12. And I know I've repeated groups, but I just had to talk about both Tarkus and Karn Evil 9. I mean, the same with Pink Floyd. I had to talk about Echoes and Atom Heart Mother. So what I've noticed, this is just going to get a little bit more of a conversational kind of part of my video. I think that it's a bit of a shame that less modern groups, excluding prog, I'm not talking about prog here, I'm talking about modern music in general. It's very much, everyone's just lost interest in longer music, and that's thanks to the radio and pop music being very short and snappy, catchy, etc. People can't just sit down and listen to a piece of music for 20 minutes and absorb it all. It's more something that you can, you know, listen to and, you know, sing along to, dance to, and all that kind of stuff, which is something that I don't think these pieces are. But it makes me a little sad to know that if I could go up to one of my friends and say, oh, do you like this ELP track, or do you like this Yes track? And they will probably look at me like, who is that? And why is it so long? I mean, I get my songs skipped all the time because they are longer than 3.5 minutes. I don't know, I think people have just got shorter attention spans. Not saying that's a bad thing, I do love a lot of shorter music as well, but definitely the downfall of prog meant that people had a shorter attention span. That's just how it was. But enough of my rambling, I could probably do a whole separate video about that. So tomorrow's video is part 2 of my dad's favourite 70s records. We're going from 75 to 79, so you can look forward to that as well. And I'd love to know what your guys' favourite prog rock epics are. Let me know in the comments section and I will try and reply to you. I hope you liked my choices, maybe you guys agreed with my choices. Let's start a conversation in the comments section, why not? Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in Saturdays with Dad tomorrow. Bye!